So every wire I've added or replaced on this boat has been slightly oversized, you know, by 1 gauge or maybe 2 gauges. In the case of these, I think some of these are probably 3, maybe 4 gauges bigger than, probably not 3, because I don't think you can do that. But anyway, the point is there's a lot of interesting discussion you could have about that. The first thing is you know, why did I spend so much more money? Because of course bigger wire is more expensive. And the other problem, though, I'll tell you, the money, I mean, I can't really argue with the money as someone who's basically used up their budget and is now out of money and trying to figure out how to finish up the refit without spending any more. I definitely feel like oversizing everything was a mistake. The money was better spent elsewhere. But I think the bigger challenge for me has been that I got to the point, you know, when you're trying to fit these wires through all the little spaces and you're trying to fit these huge bundles through in some places where I have them, you run out of room. And you wouldn't think, you're like, oh, that's tiny. How much smaller could they get? Smaller enough that I could have been a lot easier running some of these wires. Now, the reason I oversized them is, first of all, because I'm kind of, where did I put my marker? It's because I'm kind of a whack job in that I kind of feel compelled to oversize everything. And I feel like that's maybe a weird personality quirk. You know, some people are neat freaks. I feel like I need to overbuild absolutely everything. But there's actually another reason. Is in some cases it seemed, and I haven't done the actual math to prove whether I was right or not, but the thing is when you buy short lengths of wire, like by the foot, you pay more per foot than if you buy long lengths of wire, you know, like 100-foot spools. So I tried to go through and look at the boat and say, well, I'm going to need, you know, this and that and some other gauge wire. And instead of buying each individual, short lengths of each individual wire, you know, like 25 foot or whatever, 15 foot, you know, I'm just going to buy a 100-foot spool of the largest of those. So I ended up with this 10 gauge, which in most cases 16 or 14 or maybe even 12 gauge would have been fine, but I needed 10 gauge for one place. And a 100-foot spool of 10 gauge was significantly cheaper than buying, you know, all those individual pieces, or at least I thought it was. I didn't go through and do the actual math, but that was part of the reason. And that just from the idea of, I've got this 10 gauge, if I want to upgrade what's on a particular wire, you know, let's say you have the autopilot circuit, and this autopilot circuit only needs, you know, 10 amps, and later I put a different autopilot on that needs 15 amps, I know that the wire is still big enough. So whether or not that's going to prove to be worthwhile is something I'll know years down the line. But that was my reasoning for it. I paid more than I needed to, and I suffered through pulling the wires through spaces that were too small for them. So hopefully at some point in the future I'll be patting myself on the back for thinking ahead, but that remains to be seen.